Good morning, Fantastic Fours. Lovely to have you with us again. I want to give a special shout out to each and every one of you that pauses the video and does the problems and then starts it again when I ask you to. It's a sign that you take your math seriously, and well done to you. Okay, I keep going on about times tables and how important they are. And one of my past pupils, I still do tutor her, but she struggled with her times tables, and then she found something on YouTube called times tables mashup, and she used it, and her times tables are very good now. So what they do is they take a song and they put the times table to music, and because our memory is it's closely associated with music, we learn quite well. So you remember the tune, and because you know the tune, you're able to remember the maths. So I'm just going to play the 7 and 8 times table so you can get an idea what it is. But here we go.
Oh wait, I got it. My mama once told me your sevens could be hard. She said if you practice, then soon you'll be a star. Well, I've been practicing all day now. I can finally say now I know the sevens on my own. It goes like 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, and 70, 77, and 84.
Right, so you get the idea. I hope the volume was loud enough for you to be able to hear the actual numbers that they were saying, but if not, you can always look at it at home. So if you search on YouTube for times table mashup, it's a really useful way. If that's your thing, if it works for you, that's awesome. But definitely times table is something worth investing time in, and so is your mental arithmetic. It really, if there's one thing that will help your maths, it's that. So as a reminder, start of a lesson, grade 4 at WorksheetCloud.com. If you have any questions for me, anything you want to share with me. And after the lesson, click on the link above, do the worksheet just to make sure that you've got today's content. Quickly. And the next slide, as per normal, is your mental arithmetic. You'll have 40 seconds. Please be careful. I've got plus and minus in this one. And your 40 seconds start now. And that's time. So I hope you were paying attention to when there were plus and minus. So often as teachers, we give you only one kind of thing at a time. And then when you do get faced with a situation where you've got different ones mixed in together, that's where the mistakes come, because you accidentally add when you should subtract, and the other way around as well. So it's quite nice to sometimes mix them in. I did warn you though. Right, so 3 plus 3 is 6. 8 plus 6 is 14. 10 minus 4 is 6. 10 minus 6 is 4. 8 plus 8 is 16. 6 minus 5 is 1. 9 minus 7 is 2. 2 plus 8 is 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 8 plus 10 is 18. If you missed any of those, just rewind the video, watch it again, make sure you've checked for today. I hope you are improving. If you're somebody who's doing this every day and paying attention, I hope none of you are just watching as we do this and then listening to the answers and saying, yes, I got that. No, you must make sure that you do it. The doing is really how we get better at maths. So today we're looking at relationship signs, and unlike the picture on the right, I'm not talking about boyfriends and girlfriends or anything like that. You're grade 4s, you're far too young for that. I'm talking about the relationships between numbers. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, or even though you might not know that they're called relationship signs, I'm sure that in the lesson you'll pick up very quickly. You'll be like, oh yes, I know that. So our goals today, understand how to read the relationship signs and be able to put the relationship sign between numbers correctly. So we have lots, well, not lots, there are a few, but we're only going to look at 3. We're going to look at the this one, the equals, and this one. So this one on the left is read is less than. Obviously the equal sign we read is equal to. And on the right we've got is greater than. And so, for example, if this is here, we read this, 3 is less than 5. Over here, 4 is equal to 4. This might seem really a bit silly at the moment, but I'll come back to this, and you'll see actually we do use the equal sign quite often, perhaps just not in this particular format, because it looks really silly. Why would we bother to say that 4 is equal to 4? It does have its place though. And finally, when we've got this sign, if we've got this, we read this, 7 is greater than 2. Throughout this lesson, whenever we do one, I'm going to read it is greater than, or is less than, or is equal to, and please get into the habit. A lot of children are really good at putting in the sign because they've learnt about the crocodile, but they're not so good, alligator, they're not so good at reading it. So when they get it and the teacher asks them to read it out, they're like, they're not sure which one. So please, I'm going to read it is less than, is equal to, or is greater than each time. And I think get into the habit of doing that just so that you cement that knowledge in. Okay, so I'm sure you've seen the crocodile that looks like this. Children always talk about the crocodile when we talk about relationship signs. But here we have the one on the left was just quite fun. So Mr. Alligator is hungry for lunch, find the biggest number and munch, munch, munch. So basically the alligator or the crocodile faces towards the bigger of the two numbers because he wants to get the bigger of the two because he's hungry. So that's the idea of the crocodile. So we always face the open side of the sign towards the bigger number. Okay, let's jump across to our whiteboard. So I wanted to just go back to that equals thing and just talk about why it isn't actually all that silly. So let's say, for example, well, you had that example 4 equals 4, which does seem silly. But actually earlier on in mental maths, you were using an equal sign when you had something like 8 minus 2 is equal to something. That's an example of us using the equal sign. So perhaps it's less silly when we've got more than one thing on one side. And later on, in fact, you might even have a whole BODMAS equation on one side and a number on the other, and then you've got to work something out. But that's grade 5 and 6 maths. Okay, so something like that. You might also have 10 plus something is equal to 16, and you've got to figure out the something again. That is using the equal sign. So that is what we're saying where is equals to. So over here for the third one I've got here, 6. So 10 plus 6 is equal to 16. That's how we read it. And 8 minus 2 is equal to 6. So not really that silly. It's just silly when we look at it with only 2 numbers. So the focus of this lesson, we're pretty much going to look at comparing 2 numbers. Later on, we'll do something a little bit more complicated, but not super complicated. So I'm going to focus on the other 2 for most of the lesson, the greater than or less than. So let's look at our first problem. So I'm going to start off with super simple. You'll get something like this, and you'll be asked to put in the relationship sign between them. So if you think of your alligator munching, your alligator is going to munch the bigger of the 2, and you're going to get that as your answer. So you will read this, 6 is less than 7. A second example, I'm going to use 2-digit numbers on one side and a 1-digit number on the other. And I don't think you really even need to work that out to know that 12 is greater than 3, but your sign goes in like that, and you can say that 12 is greater than 3. But what I wanted to point out to you is if we have 2 digits on one side and one on the other, the number of digits here, if there are more digits, then that number is automatically bigger. So it doesn't matter that this number starts with a 1 and that number starts with a 3. Because this one has more digits, it's bigger. In fact, what you're looking at is the fact that this has something in the tens and this has nothing in the tens. And if you've got tens, then the units don't really matter because obviously the tens are going to show you the bigger one. Another way of remembering which of the sides is bigger, which I came across, is that over here there's 2 points and over here there's 1. So the 1 goes on the side where there's less and the 2 goes on the side where there's more. Just another way, but I'm sure that you're going to remember the alligator. Okay, the third one. This time I've got 2-digit numbers on both sides, 59 and 63. Think about that one while I quickly write down the next one as well. All right, let's have a look at number 3. So I'm sure at this stage you're probably able to just look at the 2 numbers and see which number is bigger. But I always like to establish a pattern that we follow each time that can work for any number. So I told you that when we've got more in one of the place values than the other, then we can tell that it's bigger. So this one has 2 digits, that has 1, so we know that this one is the bigger one. But these two have the same number of digits, and so we have to actually look at the numbers to tell. So we always start by comparing the leftmost, I'm not sure which way my video faces when you look at it, the number on the left-hand side first. So in this case, we're comparing the 5 and the 6. So what we do is we say which of those two is bigger, because those are both in the tens. The 5 is bigger, sorry, the 6 is the bigger of the two. And we don't even need to look at the units. We can then just put our relationship sign in like that, and we've got our answer. Let's look at the next one. Well, number 4, we have 3 on that side and 2 on that side, which means we don't even have to look at the numbers. We can just put in our relationship sign like that. So we read number 4's answer. 153 is greater than 99. Okay, from now on, we're going to compare ones pretty much with the same number of digits on both sides and learn our pattern for following those. So let's go 5, 8, 7, and I've got the same 3 digits in a different order on that side. Have a look at number 5 while I write down number 6. All right. So I'm looking at number 5 now. And what I'm going to start off by doing is looking at the number in the highest place value. So the highest place value is the hundreds. So I'm going to compare my hundreds. I see that 8 is bigger than 5. I don't even need to look at my tens. I can just put in my relationship sign over there. So 8 is bigger than 5. So the whole number on the right is bigger than the one on the left. So 587 is less than 875. I've deliberately chosen one for the next one where the hundreds are the same. And so if the hundreds are the same, we now need to look at the tens. So let's compare our tens. And because the tens are the same, we now need to compare our units. And I can see that 2 is bigger than 1. And so thus I can put in my relationship sign towards the bigger of the 2. And we can say that 531 is less than 532. 7. Now we're moving on to the thousands. It works exactly the same. So 9881. Now you might already be looking at that and have an answer in your head. But let's go through the process anyway. So I have the same number of digits on left and right. So what I'm going to do is start off by comparing the highest place value. So in this case, it's thousands. And I notice that I have the same in the thousands. So now I'm going to compare my hundreds. And I notice I have the same in the hundreds. So I'm going to compare my tens. And I have the same in the tens. So I'm going to compare my units. And I have the same in the units. And there's nothing left, which means that these two are equal to each other. All right, so if all of them are the same, it's equal. I'm sure many of you noticed that the number was the same on both sides, but it's quite all right to follow the process anyway. So that's the only equals one I've put in, I think. Yeah. Now I've got one more. Okay, so I've got 6, 7, 6, and 3, 6, 7, 6. Now, I've deliberately put in one like this so that you don't get caught into the trap. So I can see I've got a 6 on the front and a 3 on the front there. But it's not true to say that the number on the left is bigger because they're not in the same place value spot. So if I'm comparing the 6, this is the hundreds, and I need to compare it with a 6 in the hundreds. So in fact, all I can say, I've got 3 digits on this side and I've got 4 on this side. I don't even need to look at the numbers, and I already can tell you that the number on the right is greater than the number on the left. So we read that 676 is less than 3,676. Number 9. Right, let's follow our process. Okay, we've got 4 in both sides, so we need to compare. We need to compare the numbers. So thousands are the same. Hundreds are the same. Units, tens are different. And so because 2 is bigger than 1, we can now put in our sign over there and we say 8,813 is less than 8,823. Right, this is the last example. And then I'm going to put down 10 that I'm going to ask you to do. So 8, 6, 3, and the same 3 digits on the other side. This is the sort of thing your teachers will put in your work just to check that you've understood properly. So I've got the same 3 here. I've got an 8, a 6, and a 3, and I've got an 8, a 6, and a 3 over here. But now I'm going to look to see which of these is bigger. And just because they've got the same digits in them doesn't make them equal. So let's start off. They both got 3. I'm going to look at my hundreds. The hundreds are the same. I'm going to look at my tens. The tens are different. And so I can put, I've been doing green, so let me continue with green. I can do that. I don't even need to worry about my units because I've already found a difference in the tens. And so we read this, 863 is greater than 836. Right, make sure you have pen and paper or pencil and paper. I'm going to put 10 up now, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes to go through them. Let me just put them on quickly. So there's a couple more things I want to slot in the lesson, so I've decided to just give you 6, and I will give you just over a minute and a half to do that. A little bit longer. Right, let's go through them. If you need more time, just pause the video. It's quite all right to take more time. Remember, you're the people who I gave a shout out to at the start of the lesson, because I'm always really impressed when people take the time to do their work and make sure they're getting it right before they check the answers. All right, first up, I gave you a nice straightforward one. I worked from easy to difficult as we did with the examples. We can see that 5 is greater than 3, and in fact that's all we do. 5 is bigger than 3, so we read that 5 is greater than 3. If we're comparing the next two, I'm starting by comparing my tens. I can see that 9 is bigger than 8, so we can say that 93 is greater than 89. Looking at the next one, you don't have to compare them because the one on the left has 3 digits, the one on the right has 2, and so we can automatically just put in our sign. Some teachers try and make sure that their arrows are equally done. Sorry, their relationship signs are equally done one way or the other. I don't really. I think it could all be one, could all be the other. I don't really think that way. Okay, but let's look at the fourth one. So comparing, those ones are the same. Those ones are the same. So I look at my units. I see that 5 is bigger than 3. And so we can say that, wrong color, 673 is less than 675. Same number of digits. 9s are the same. 8s are the same. So in the tens, I see a difference. And now I can put my relationship sign in like that. So we say that 9,831 is less than 9,861. Okay, so this one I deliberately did a little bit of a naughty thing. Not really a naughty thing, your teachers will do this as well. But I was looking over here, so I've got this 1, 3, 1 and this 1, 3, 1. So it's sort of like it's repeating on both sides. You might get confused, you might think they're equal. You might think that because this one starts with a 4 and that one starts with a 1, that the one on the left is bigger. But what you really need to do is keep track of how many digits. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't even need to look at the numbers. I know that the number on the right-hand side is the bigger of the two. So I read that 4,131 is less than 13,131. Look at that. My relationship signs were 3 one way and 3 the other. That's completely chance. I never set it up to always match. It's always be the same. Okay, so I'm going to move down to look at a couple more. But this time, I'm looking at ones where the numbers are, you have to actually work out what each side is. So if you want to jot it down on your piece of paper, you can. I will do this sort of mental arithmetic in my head in order to do it. But I can see that if I add my tens, I get 90. And if I add my units, I get another 10, which gets me to 100. So those will add up to 100, and I'm comparing that with 105, and I can see hundreds are the same, tens are the same, but this one has a bigger units number, and so I can actually put that in like that. So although this one has a written out sum on it, I'm only really comparing the total of what the problem is, and that's how we do it. So you try. Let's try these. There's just enough time to do these. There will be some of these in your worksheet today, so make sure you practice. I'm going to put in 15. I'll give you about 2 minutes to get through these, then I'll give you the answers, and then just a little bit more random information, and then we're going to finish for today. another 50 seconds, and then if you're still busy, you're going to have to pause. Okay, that's got to be enough time. If you still need more, you just pause it. I need to move on, otherwise I'm not going to have time to finish up what I need to. Okay, so I'm going to do this maths in my head. 36 minus 12 is 24. 12 plus 12 is 24. And so we can see that these two are in fact equal. Looking at number 13, 56 minus 8 is 48. 7 times 7 is 49. 49 is bigger than 48. So 48 is less than 49. 5 times 6 is 30. 10 times 3 is 30. So both sides are the same, and we can say that those are equal. 63 minus 9 is 54. 54 plus 2 is 56. And so we can see that the one on the right is the bigger. So we read 63 minus 9 is less than 54 plus 2. So I think in a couple of them I read them with their answers. If you were just putting in the relationship sign, then you would read out the whole thing. So 56 minus 8 is less than 7 times 7. Okay, you can see the heading at the bottom, other relationship signs. These are ones you're not going to have to do, but I always think it's useful to plant the seed so that you're used to it for the future. So the first one, in the light blue, greater than or equal to. And an example of where you might use this is, for example, when you're talking about your age groups of sport for your school, you'll say 10 and older. So that's greater than or equal to 10. So greater than or equal to 10. So you would write that as, let me just do it underneath. You would say greater than or equal to 10. So that's your age is greater than or equal to 10. In other words, you're 10 or older. We have the less than or equal to in the gold. And then this one I quite like. It's an equal sign with a cross through that's not equal to. You're not going to use that one for quite a while, but I always like to just put it there so that you've got it in your brains for when it comes in the future. Those of you that pause, you are my champions. In fact, all of you grade 4s are champions for coming to doing maths every day. I think that's fantastic. Let's finish off the lesson. Yeah, so email me, grade4@worksheetcloud.com. Click on the link above, do the lesson or do the worksheet. Make sure that you got this. Make sure that you understand the relationship signs so that when we move on to rounding off in the next lesson, you'll be able to do that. So I look forward to seeing you for that lesson in the near future. Have a fantastic day, grade 4s. Goodbye.